Have you ever heard of AI agents used in a mesh architecture? It's a thing. Let's talk about it. Well, welcome back to AI Insights Innovation, the one channel where we talk about the real world of AI and what's working for the enterprises and what's not. I'm your host, David Linthicum, author, speaker, B-list geek, and analyst with theCUBE Research. Let's get started. So obviously, Agentic AI is booming out there. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's building their products to the Agentic-based standard. A bunch of standards are starting to emerge, and every vendor out there is promoting their product as either supporting it or will support it. And certainly everybody has Agentic AI washed, all their technology, which is what we anticipate when there's any kind of a change in the trends. And certainly that's beyond a trend right now. So we're still talking about generative AI, but we're talking about the utilization of it with agentic AI systems, which is really nothing more than autonomous agents that are able to operate and function together around common goals and objectives. And it's kind of a 30-second explanation of what it is. There's lots of videos out there, including ones I've done on this channel, that get more into what agentic AI is. I urge you to go watch those if you'd like to understand more about the technology. Well, obviously, it's emerging in ways where people are redefining it in ways that I guess they view as creative, in other words, innovative in the space. And so people are talking about different agent configurations. People are talking about how to leverage these systems in a heterogeneous environment, how to secure them, how to govern them, all kinds of stuff, and also different architectures are emerging. And one that kind of caught my eye, and this is nothing new, by the way, this architecture has been around for a while, is AI agent mesh architectures, which really are about having groups of agents that are able to function together in a mesh arrangement. If you have a mesh Wi-Fi system at home, it's very much the same kind of idea. In other words, the ability to work together, have coordination between agents, and have them sharing loads and sharing tasks, and be able to support any number of business problems that way. So mesh, again, is a network structure of interconnected agents that are working collaboratively. And they have the adaptability and distributed intelligence of a mesh architecture. So it's an AI system that we're able to break apart into different functions, different agents. They can be analogs of each other, in other words, complete copies, just basically carrying out their own tasks, or they can have specific tasks that they're working on as an agent. But the idea is that they're going to coordinate very tightly, more so than other agentic-based systems. And so the agents are going to do things like communicate and share communications with different systems that are out there, the ability to have agents take on certain tasks. Like one agent is very good at supply chain integration and logistics. The other one's very good at weather predictability and how it's going to affect the supply chain. All these sorts of talents can be built in the particular agent, and then they're able to function together to carry out a system behavior. So some of the key use cases for the enterprise would be dynamic resource allocation. AI agents optimize server resources in real time to handle fluctuating workloads. In other words, very much like the AI mesh stuff, they're able to carry out in multiplex and carry out different functions that they can do because they're closer to or more available to the requesting resource. And so, just like we have mesh, I keep using as an analogy, but I think it's apt. We have these mesh Wi-Fi systems in our house, and as we move around the house, they're able to pass our phones and other devices that we're carrying from one mesh node to another, and it's very similar here. In other words, we have the ability to have clusters of agents that are working together to ensure better services and service utilization, and also better reliability, because if one agent is not there to take on the task, another agent is capable of doing it. And basically, the one agent that's ready to take on the load is able to take on the load. So you're always going to get service in using these kinds of architectures because we're not leveraging one single point, one single agent. Therefore, there's not a single point of failure. We're spreading the risk among very, very different nodes, and they're working together to make sure we continue having the service. So another use case would be automatic fault detection and recovery. Mesh agent monitor and predict failures, ensuring self-healing systems. And so they're able to operate together, and they can detect faults before they occur, and they can recover directly from the faults. Again, working together as a collaborative set of agents. Another use case would be continuous deployment and CI/CD pipeline management. This is where agents orchestrate updates across distributed systems efficiently and autonomously. This enhances delivery speed without sacrificing stability or compliance. And so this is where agent technology, in this case mesh agent technology, can be used in a DevOps toolchain and carry on a load where it's able to do things in a more redundant and reliable way. So next would be data processing and management. AI agents provide decentralized, efficient data analytics across systems, facilitates faster decision-making and real-time insights at scale. So this is where we're able to assign an agent that's working in a mesh configuration with a particular point of utilization. In other words, some client is using that agent to make decisions about supply chain integration, order re-entry, inventory, reorder points, all these sorts of things that businesses do. And instead of having it in one central organization, such as in a public cloud provider, we have agents that are able to operate and coordinate together, and the agents that's closer to the person who's going to be making those decisions is the one that's going to be able to receive the services. And obviously it's going to be faster because it's located near where the user is, the point of utilization. It could be a system or it could be a human. And that's a good thing in terms of an architecture. So it's creating something that's more, provides more redundance, but also provides more reliability because of that. So what are the advantages here? Well, let's kind of take a look at it. Well, first would be resilience. A decentralized structure eliminates single points of failure. Also, it provides scalability, expandable as enterprise demands grow. So in other words, the more we need in terms of agent services, the more agents we just launch. And since they're analogs of each other, in essence replicants, it's not a big deal to do that. And we're not having to configure these very complex systems where each agent takes on its certain role and responsibility, because basically each of the agents is doing very similar things, if not exactly the same thing. We're just using them as a coordinated cluster. So what are the downsides of this architecture? Well, complexity would be the one that comes to mind. Designing and maintaining mesh systems can be highly challenging. So lots of agents are running in their own platform space. They have to be maintained. They provide some more security vulnerabilities because they become attack surface unto themselves. And obviously, if they're co-located on some sort of a platform we don't have direct control of, like on a device or in a cloud provider, we have to deal with the security concerns there. So the more we're creating distributed and complex systems, the more it's going to cost to operate them and the more it's going to cost to secure them. So what about agentic AI and using AI agents in a mesh configuration as it relates to security or mitigating other risks? Well, secure AI agents using encryption, authentication protocols, and frequent audits really are going to be a best practice out there. So again, it's going to be a much more complicated solution. The attack surfaces are going to be a bit different. The exposures are a bit different. It certainly can be managed with a distributed security infrastructure, identity access management, resource management, things like that. But you have to kind of think about how you're going to do that. Also keep in mind that use of this kind of an architecture, even though we've had instances of this in the past. I mean, I built AI agents back in the 80s. This is something that we're going to have to consider in terms of which technologies are adaptable to this particular architecture. You'll find that most of the security solutions, operations solutions out there haven't completely adapted to utilization of AI agents, and that's going to be a vulnerability. So where is this stuff all going to go? Well, AI mesh systems are able to revolutionize enterprise app delivery despite some of the challenges we suggested. So we need to focus on areas like security, obviously ethics because it's AI, and performance optimization to, get to the future state and using these particular architectures unto themselves that are able to be better than what we currently have. My warning to everybody out there when they hear, kind of a new way of using something that's already new, and everybody thinks agentic AI is new. It's actually something very old that people have relaunched in, 2025. Is the ability to fit this into a particular use case where it's actually going to be useful. My warning is don't back this into everything and anything just because it's the next cool architecture that's out there. You can solve very similar problems with different, more simpler and less costly technologies. And so my concern when people build this, that it's going to be for the wrong reasons. It's for using the particular architecture because of the attractiveness and the coolness of the architecture, which it is pretty cool. But it's going to cost you more to secure. It's going to cost you more to operate because it is going to be a complex system. So there has to be a business case for using this kind of an architecture. You're going to spend 3 to 4 times the amount of money in building a traditional system, versus something like this that's agentic. And it has its advantages, but it has its disadvantages as well. You need to consider both. So to summarize, AI agents in a mesh architecture offer scalability, resiliency, and efficiency for enterprise app deployment, but require careful management to address complexity and security concerns. And that doesn't mean that we necessarily avoid them because they're overly complex and cause some security issues, but that means that we're frugal in how we use them. I have a tendency to see that enterprises have a pattern of adopting, kind of what's trendy, and they use that in their existing applications. I suspect if I was roaming around the country, going from meeting room to meeting room, they'd be talking about utilizing this technology, but for use cases and business cases that were contraindicated for using not only this mesh-based, agentic-based deployment, but agentic at all, or even AI at all. So it's obviously going to be overused in many instances, and I think enterprises, they'll see in a few years, end up losing out and have to hit the reset button and move that technology or move that system to something that's simpler to manage and easier to deploy and much more cost effective. So that would be the warning out there. So think like an architect, think like a business person. When you're looking at this technology, this is another architectural point or concept that's being floated out there. And this is what it is. This is where it fits. And this is when you should consider it. Well, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the other content here, as well as check out my other assets, my InfoWorld blog, my courses out on LinkedIn Learning, and my other YouTube channel, Cloud Computing Insider. So until next time, you guys stay very safe. Cheers.